But this is unacceptable. We are losing our children, and we really need to think about the gun violence that's going on in this city, and we all need to step up to try to fight this type of gun violence to save our children. Right now, the Chicago Police Department and our detective division are canvassing the area, collecting evidence. They're looking for any video footage or any other evidence that they can find to identify this offender. We will not rest until we bring some justice to this case. And it's not just this case. We're seeing this happen all too often to our children. Although the numbers are down from last year, any person shot is unacceptable. Even if it's one too many. We really have to think about what we're doing. So far this year, we've had 127 juveniles who have been victims of gun violence. We've had 17 who have lost their lives to gun violence. Those numbers are significantly down from last year, but still unacceptable. What we need to talk about is how we're going to protect our children. My condolences to Mom. My condolences to the parents, to the father, to everyone who is related to this young person, everyone who knows this young person. Life was snuffed out before he even had the opportunity to live it the way it needed to be lived. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the mayor, the city of Chicago, Mayor Johnson.
Thank you, Superintendent, and thank you to our police officers who responded swiftly and provided life-saving tactics and measures for this baby. My condolences to the mother, to the father, to all those who love this baby. As the superintendent has already expressed, the grief in this city has become increasingly more unbearable. The ungodly behavior and the acts of violence that have plagued our city for so long have reached a breaking point in this city, where this is no longer just simply about tragedy. This is about course-correcting ways of life of some individuals in this city that have caused terror, trauma, and torment. As our detectives and our police department continue to investigate this tragic shooting and the death of this baby, we will hold individuals accountable for the crime and for the torment and the torture that they have caused in this city. We also have to make sure that we are moving measures, policies that build better, stronger, and safer communities. And I can tell you that the weapon that was used to kill this baby are illegal and have no business on the streets of Chicago or anywhere else for that matter. As a city, we have to continue to surround one another, protect one another, and do everything in our power to build a society in which a child can grow up and go outside without the fear or the reality of being murdered. To the people of Chicago, we are a city that is capable of a better Chicago. We are a city that is capable of a stronger Chicago. And we are a city that is destined and capable of a safer Chicago. These acts of violence must end. The weapons that are flowing through the streets of Chicago and around this country, we have to stop. And then we have to hold people accountable. And that's what we will do. And with that, we will take questions. Thank you.
Can we start to do this in order? Can we start left to right here, please?
Mayor Johnson, or Superintendent Snelling, neighbors told us that there have been, every night for the last several days, they've been hearing gunshots. The CPD last week did log another shooting on the same block where this tragedy occurred. What are you able to tell us about what led up to this shooting and any of the conflict that might have preceded this loss of life?
Well, right now, that's still under investigation. Anything that we give you right now would be speculation until we gather some more facts on why this shooting occurred and who the shooter was targeting at that time. So right now, until we gather more facts, I can't give you a good answer to that right now. But what we will do is, as we gather more information, we will be putting that information out.
And for Superintendent Snelling, briefly, can you confirm what the kid was doing? Was he coming out of the apartment complex? Was he playing on the playground? And then for the mayor, I spoke with a child not much older than this kid at that same apartment complex. She says that she's not allowed to play outside because of the fear of something like this happening. Her mom doesn't allow it. What does that say to you?
So I'll answer the first question, and I'll let the mayor answer. This 7-year-old was exiting his apartment, going to visit a neighbor right next door. And as the 7-year-old reached the sidewalk, shots rang out, and this young person was struck in the chest. So this wasn't a situation where the parents didn't know where their child was. This child was walking out of his residence and was struck by random gunfire.
And those shots came from outside the gates?
They came from a really good distance. And that's what our officers and our detectives are investigating now. And again, as we get more information, we'll be putting more information out.
Next question.
Hold on, the mayor.
Yeah, for too many families growing up in Chicago, that this is the fear. It's a fear that I've had myself. You know, I live in a neighborhood that is beautiful. We love the West Side. We love raising our family in Austin. But this is a fear that families have dealt with for decades in this city. And this is why I'm doing everything in my power to invest in these neighborhoods where poverty has been pervasive. There is a direct correlation between disinvestment, poverty, and violence. And that's why my administration is working overtime to not just make sure that we have law enforcement to actually hold people accountable, but that we actually root out the evil that has existed in our communities for generations. When my sons rode their bikes, we had this conversation repeatedly, my wife and I, about which routes they can take. This is a fear that we have been dealing with this in this city for generations now. And that's why this is not just simply about our response to a tragedy. This is about our response to policy that have created conditions that have made it impossible for families to feel comfortable raising their children in Chicago. And so we have had enough of this. We've had enough. We're not pointing a finger at anybody. We all have to get to work and decide what kind of city we ultimately want to be. A city where children can get up and walk and ride their bikes and play, or a city that has allowed weapons to come into the city to terrorize us. And so we're going to continue to work hard to ensure that families don't have to deal with the fear, the doubt, the tragedy of disinvestment and violence.
Superintendent Snelling, can you just speak to the specific area? There's no secret that gang violence, drug violence in that area has been a problem for years. There was a shooting 3 weeks ago, a 5-year-old girl who was killed a block away. Anti-violence groups came in, they set up shop, and days later we're back at square one. And so do you have men on the ground, men and women on the ground, besides the anti-violence folks who are trying to bring just more resources to the community? What's happening there for residents who feel that there's shootings every single day, that kids can't go outside?
Well, one of the things that I can tell you, starting with the Chicago Police Department, we're focused on these locations. We're focused on these areas. Now, obviously, it's hard to be everywhere all the time, but we are focused on these locations, and especially in these areas where we know our top 35 beats. The top 35 most violent beats out there is where we push most of our manpower. And we put it there to keep the violent crime down. Now, what I will tell you is this. When we arrest people for violent crimes, we have to prosecute them. We have to keep them off the street. We cannot allow repeat offenders to go back out on the street. This is not only frustrating for the Chicago Police Department, it's not only frustrating when we know that we've arrested someone who's committed a violent act and they're right back out again. It's frustrating to members of our community. These are great people living in these communities, and a lot of them are prisoners in their own homes. We want to do whatever we can to put an end to that. We don't want people to feel like they can't walk out. And it's unfortunate that a mother and a father who are doing what they're supposed to do for their 7-year-old and raising their child, that child can't even walk out to the sidewalk without being struck by random gunfire. These are the things that we want to put an end to. But we do need help. As a Chicago Police Department, we can't do it alone, and we do have people who are stepping up and helping out. But we need more. We need voices. We need voices from the community. We need people to provide information. If you have that information, our CPD tip line, cpdtip.com. If you have any information on this or any information on any other violent crime that you may have seen, please call that line and provide whatever information that you can.
Can you confirm, though, that this was likely gang-related, even though the 7-year-old was not the intended target? Is it safe to say that?
It would be speculation at this point. And here's what I would tell you. I do not believe that the 7-year-old was targeted. I do not believe that at this time. We have no reason to believe that. Now, to say that there's a possibility that it's gang-related, it's always a possibility, especially in these locations. However, until we get more information, I don't want to give you a concrete answer on what it is or what it isn't. So as this investigation unfolds, we will be putting more information out. Once we start to identify possible offenders, we will get that information out to you.
Blue dress.
Yeah, my question is, and you already kind of touched on it, but when we spoke with some residents out there, they said that these are longtime residents who've been there since the 90s. They said that within the last year or last couple of years, the violence has just gotten worse out there. I guess they've reached out to the local police department, they've reached out to the alderman, and they're saying that nothing is being done. They talked about how they even got bullets just a few days ago, injuring themselves, just trying to make sure they were not hit. I mean, I know there's no quick solution or resolution, but is there anything that can be done immediately just to give them some sort of like relief to these people who are living in fear?
Well, I can tell you this, especially when we know young people are being injured and losing their lives in these locations. Our police department, our community policing, our outreach, every resource that we can get from the mayor's office, which is being provided, we're going to saturate those locations with all of the resources that we can. We're also going to reach out to families in that area to make sure that we provide some type of resources to deal with the trauma that these people are dealing with over there. We have to take this seriously, and we do. As a police department, we see this type of carnage every single day. And it's tragic that we come upon scenes where children are shot, where the elderly are shot, or anybody for that matter. People losing their lives senselessly to gun violence in this city. Something has to be done about it. And I can guarantee you this, our officers are working extremely hard to do something about this. I can tell you right now, the trauma that our officers are dealing with right now from seeing that and trying to save this 7-year-old's life and just seeing the looks on their faces, having to bring that young person here and then finding out that it wasn't enough to save this child's life. I can only imagine what the parents are going through or what the relatives are going through. So we have to have that level of empathy as the Chicago Police Department to make sure that we respond to them in the appropriate ways. So we are here for the residents who are out here who feel traumatized, who feel victimized, and feel like they can't come out of their homes. We're going to be there for you.
Natalie, and then Eric, your last.
Can you say whether it confirmed a boy or a girl?
It's a young boy.
Okay.
Well, that's a great question. As a parent, as a single parent, when my kids were very young, I kept my kids close to me. Now, unfortunately, not everybody can do that because they're working late hours, as you said. But the best that we can do is educate our children. Try to form something with your neighbors and individuals in the neighborhood to come together as a group to find a way to just maybe transport your kids to and from locations as a group with adults, just to have someone there with them. This may be helpful to protecting our children. It's unfortunate that we have to do that. But if we want to protect our children right now, these are things that we have to do. So we have to form a community around our children.
Last question.
Mayor, 71 people shot over Father's Day weekend. We've got a 7-year-old boy here who was killed. Are you looking at a change in your summer safety trend?
Let me just first go back to the initial question about what was asked about how we care for our own children. I can't express enough how deeply hurt we all are. The tragedy has just been overwhelming. The loss of life, this is unnatural, it's ungodly. And it's why I've worked so hard over this last year to create opportunities for our young people as well as their parents. And it's unfortunate that we have people fighting my administration against the investments that we are working to make. Our parks are open. So let me just say that. Our parks are open. And parents who are looking for an opportunity for your child, your family to engage, our parks are available. We still have summer youth employment opportunities for young people. As far as the shootings that took place over the weekend, look, we will continue to work with our police department. We'll continue to work with a philanthropic community, the business community, our community-based organizations, our alderpersons. I'm grateful our Vice Mayor, Alderman Walter Burnett, is here, has been a real champion of creating more opportunities for our families. That's what's needed in this moment. That the tragedy that we are experiencing right now are the direct results of decades of disinvestment. There's a direct correlation between disinvestment, poverty, and violence. And so, yes, it's holding people accountable. Yes, it's making sure that the strategies that we've put forth, where you have seen a reduction in homicides, there's a reduction in shootings, and there's still more work to be done. But this work to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago requires true investment in the neighborhoods that have experienced loss. Because the tragedy is not just the shooting or the shootings. The tragedy is when we take hope away from communities that have been calling for investments for decades. And now we're showing up. Let me make this emphatically clear. My administration will continue to show up for the people of Chicago to ensure that we have everything that we need and deserve to have better, stronger, safer communities. So appreciate you all being here today, and let's continue to make sure that we are praying and that we are working together to have a city that we can all be proud of. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, guys.